Welcome to the Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. My name is Steve, and I just want to thank y'all for joining me again today. While we go through and we do today's reading from James Allen's Daily Meditation, this is going to be June 13th. June's been pretty action-packed so far this month, so I'm excited to follow up on this with the 13th, and this will be fresh to you and fresh to me, of course. So this will be my genuine response, reactions, observations, and what I relate to about the reading. And this will be the first time that I hear or read the daily reflection today from James Allen. So here we go. June 13th from James Allen's Daily Meditations. The restful reality of the eternal heart. The spirit of man is inseparable from the infinite, and can be satisfied with nothing short of the infinite. And the burden of pain will continue to weigh upon man's heart, and the shadows of sorrow to darken his pathway until, ceasing from wanderings in the dream world of matter, he comes back to his home in the reality of the eternal. As the smallest drop of water detached from the ocean contains all the qualities of the ocean, so man, detached in consciousness from the infinite, contains within himself its likeness. And as the drop of water must, by law of nature, ultimately find its way back to the ocean and lose itself in its silent depths, so must man, by the unfailing law of his nature, at last reborn to his source, and lose himself in the great of the infinite. To become one with the infinite is the goal of man. I love that reading. That one. There's so much truth in that I didn't even quite understand for a good amount of time. Actually, I didn't quite grasp the concept that was talked about. Um, I was I really didn't understand where they were coming from with that. So, and how this the material world really was not what where I would find that ultimate joy, ultimate happiness, right? Oh, that ultimate peace didn't come from anything that I could find external to myself. So let's go through this line by line. I'm looking forward to getting into this one. Actually, the restful reality of the eternal heart. Where do we find peace inside of our soul? Right, serenity is, as described, I believe, by Emmett Fox, was a calm or peaceful soul. So the restful reality of the eternal heart. The spirit of man is inseparable from the infinite. So there's a little part of the infinite in all of us. There's that little part of what some would call source, what some may call God, what some may call nature. That's in all of us. We can't be separated from it. We can forget about the connection to it, which is what we talk about later on. Inseparable from the infinite, and can be satisfied with nothing short of the infinite. And the burden of pain will continue to weigh upon man's heart, and the shadows of sorrow to darken his pathway until, ceasing from wanderings in the dream world of matter, he comes back to his home in the reality of the eternal. And that's all one sentence. First and foremost, it's a beautiful sentence, quite long, but what we're saying here is our spirit is part of the eternal. We can't ever be separated from that, right? And then the only thing that will actually satisfy that longing to be a part of, that desire to be included, is really returning back to that, is really finding that again. right? And the burden of pain, the burden of pain will continue to weigh upon a man's heart, and the shadows of sorrow darken his pathway until. So there's a lot of things that can happen in this world, a lot of pain that can occur in this world until we pursue this pathway again, until we change where we're looking for that sense of completeness and that sense of wholeness, right? Because when we look for it in another person, we're dependent on that person. When we look for it in an object or a title or a label, we're dependent on that to complete us, to make us feel whole again. But as when we cease from wanderings in the dream world of matter, right? When we stop um, indiscriminately walking, indiscriminately just trying anything to satisfy that desire, right? He comes back to his home in the reality of the eternal, in the reality of the source, yeah, the God, nature, whatever is that underlying power that you might believe that is a power greater than yourself, right? That's what we're going. That's where we turn to feel to satisfy that desire of our soul. It has to be reconnected with that infinite, and it has to be allowed to have that connection again because it was never actually separated. We just forgot that's where we needed to go to for it with it. I like this metaphor he gives. As the smallest drop of water detached from the ocean contains all qualities of the ocean, right? Water is water, whether you whether it's in the ocean or whether it's in a bottle that you bought from the store, or whether it's the water within you. It all leads back, right? It's all the same properties. So man, detached in consciousness from the infinite, contains within himself its likeness. So we're all just little pieces of the infinite. We're all just our souls and our spirits are manifestations of that infinite. We're and we're separated from it in physical body, but never fully apart. And as the drop of water must, by the law of nature, ultimately find its way back to the ocean and lose itself in the silent depths, ultimately going back to the source, ultimately going back to the body of water, back to its the vastness that it came from. So must man, by the unfailing law of his nature, at last return to his source and lose himself in the great of the infinite. And lose himself in the great of the infinite. So we must give ourselves back over to this. We must consciously, by choice, give ourselves back over to this infinite, to this God, to this power, to this large, to this infinite, eternal thing we have to, that we've been broken off of, that we've been separated from, right? We have to give ourselves back over to it. And there we'll be freed from the bondage of our own fears, of our own minds, and of the material world. We'll be able to walk through this world with confidence and steadfastness that we never knew was possible before. But we must turn back to it to get that. And then he ends up with this: to become one with the infinite is the goal of man. To become one in the infinite. I think there's a ideology that says that we're all just parts of God, and we're just walking around living until we figure that out again. And that's kind of what this is playing towards. It's kind of the same understanding, right? Because when we actually become part of this, when we actually acknowledge this power greater than ourselves and this force and this power in the universe, and we decide to join with it, we decide to serve it, right? That's what we talk, a service to that power, to that greater good, that righteousness, the truth, the good, love. When we turn be of service to that rather than to our self-serving needs, our selfish ends, and our self-absorption, life changes. Yeah, it's a much fuller, happier life, a more joyful life that you didn't know was possible. At least I didn't. This was all stuff that I've had to learn in my journey. I've had to understand. I've had to try so many different ways to figure out this world isn't going to serve me for what I need to turn to a God of my understanding, a power greater than myself, to get that that connection and that spiritual fulfillment that I've always looked for, and then I can turn back to the world and be a part of it fully without making unreasonable demands from it. And what a beautiful thing that's been. The freedom that I've found in that has been absolutely incredible. So, all right, a little bit shorter one for today, but still is fantastic. I'm again looking forward to seeing how the rest of June goes. We're coming up on half of the year at this point, and it's been great. So um, we'll go ahead and I will be back on again tomorrow. So until next time, thanks.